Hey guys, this is Rohit. Welcome to the new series of iOS where we will start with the basics and move towards the advanced topics. Today, we will see how to make a project in iOS using Xcode, see different parts of Xcode and how it works. Make a simple app that checks if a number is even or odd. So let's start by opening Xcode. This is the startup screen. Click Create a new Xcode project. In Xcode, you can make apps for iOS, that includes iPhone and iPad, watchOS, that's Apple Watch, tvOS for Apple TV, macOS for Mac, and cross-platform. This video is focused on iOS, so in that we will go with a single view application and click Next. Here we have to enter a product name, that's the name of your app. We will enter even odd. You can enter your own organization name and identifier. The language will be Swift and the user interface will be Storyboard. Uncheck Core Data and Tests and click Next. Save your project where you want it to be. I'll select my desktop and click Create. What you see on the left side is the Navigator area. The one in the middle is the Editor area and the right side one is the Inspector area. What's hidden right now is the Debug area and you can toggle them all from the toolbar like this. Main.storyboard is where you get to design your screens. First, let me show you the flow of our application. We will start with the first screen that will just have one button and its only job will be to take us to the second screen. We could obviously start our app directly from the second screen, but I kept it this way to show you different ways to navigate between screens. Now in the second screen, as you can see, we have a text field and a button. We will enter a number in the text field and click the button that checks if the entered number is even or odd. And then it will take us to the result screen accordingly, which just has a label showing the result. Now again, I could just keep one result screen and update the value of the label in that screen, but I want to keep this as simple as possible and we will see those ways in the upcoming sessions. Now let's head over to main.storyboard and start making our app. First, I would like to show you the document outline. We can hide and show it from here. It shows the UI elements of the selected screen, or as we call them, view controller. As you can see, when I tap on this screen, it shows what is selected in it. In this case, it is the default view of the view controller. Now as we saw in the design flow, we need to add a button in this view controller. That we can simply do by clicking on the plus button. There we have our object library with all the UI elements for us to use. We will just drag and drop the button on the view controller. Now before we go any further, I'll have to explain you the inspector area. As you can see, there are 7 tabs in the inspector and each one of them serves a different purpose. Starting from the leftmost, we have the file inspector, then the history inspector, then comes quick help inspector. These 3 are used less. The next 4 are important though. Fourth one, identity inspector. If you are to create any custom class for a UI element, this is where you specify it to link them. We will see it in implementation in some time. The fifth one, attributes inspector, happens to be the most used one. All the attributes of a UI element can be changed or set from here. We will get back to it in a few seconds. The sixth one, size inspector, as you might have guessed, yes, you can change or set the size and location of the UI element from here. The seventh and the last one, connections inspector. It shows all the types of connections between a UI element and the class. We will see this in the upcoming sessions. Now let's try and design the button the way we saw it in the design flow. We need to change its size. The button is already selected, so we just go to the size inspector. For simplicity, let's put the width of the button as 260 and the height as 60. We will drag it to the center of the view controller. Now I'm going to put some constraints for auto layout, but we will discuss them in detail in upcoming sessions. So I'm going to give it the constraints of width and height. Then we will center it horizontally and vertically in the container. And lastly, its width should be more than or equal to 260. That's all. If you did not understand all this, it's fine. We will get back to it in the upcoming sessions. Now, let's give a blue background to the button as we saw in the design. Let's change the text to even odd, make the text color white and the font size 24. Next, we will embed it in a navigation controller so that it is easy to navigate between screens. Now, we will add another view controller from the object library. Let's drag a button and a text field in this view controller and give them the constraints. We will design the button as we did last time and provide a placeholder for the text field. Finally, we will quickly add 2 more view controllers and put a label in the center displaying the result. We have all the view controllers in place, all there's left is navigation. And for that, I'll have to introduce you to Segue. Segue in English means a smooth transition from one section to the next. In iOS, Segue is used to navigate to the next view controller. I'm going to show you 2 ways of using Segue for navigation. First, let's create a segue from a button to a view controller. But how to make a segue? It's easy. Just select the button, press and hold the control key on your keyboard. Now click on the button, drag the connection out to the destination and leave. Select show. You see how it made a connection? It's all magic. Locomotor view controller. Magic aside, we will call this step control click drag from now on. So from now on, when I say control click drag, you should assume that I am holding the control key, clicking the element and dragging the connection out to the destination. When I say VC, I mean a view controller. Next, let's create segues from a view controller to another view controller or VC. The first one, which we did from a button to a VC, can work just from the UI without any code. The other ones though, view controller to view controller, need an identifier, and that identifier needs to be called in your code. Only then will it execute. Now why it's like that? We'll get into that later. This is your first session. Let's take one step at a time. Let's give unique identifiers to the VC to VC segues. We'll call one even and the other odd. Obviously, you should make sure it leads to the appropriate screen. Let's talk about connections between a view controller and a custom UI view controller class. Let me select a VC and head over to the identity inspector. You see the name of the custom class mentioned there? That means it's linked to that class. And when I select this VC, it's empty. That means it's not yet linked to any class. In the storyboard, we see 4 view controllers and 1 navigation controller that embeds them all. The first VC does not need any code or class as it just navigates to the second VC. So we will just delete the class that was created for it by default. Right click on the view controller file, delete and move to trash. Let's also remove its entry from the identity inspector. The second VC needs to check if the user input is even or odd and call the appropriate segue to show the result, so we will need a class for it. The third and fourth VC just display a label and do not need any class for them. So let's go ahead and make one for the second VC by pressing Command+N. Select Cocoa Touch class and click Next. As you see, it is a subclass of UI view controller and that's what we want it to be. Let's name it Check VC and click Next and click Create. This creates a file for us named Check VC. Now we have to link it with the second VC. Select the second VC in the identity inspector, start typing check VC and it will autofill. Press enter and it's done. Now in this VC we have 2 UI elements, a text field and a button. Let me show you how to link them in the class file. Click on Adjust Editor option and select Assistant. If it comes on the right side for you, select Editor, Layout, Editor on top. Now you see the class file on the bottom side and you have the design on the top. To link a UI element, select it, control click drag it in the class just above the viewDidLoad method. Let's give it the name NumberTextField. This creates an IB outlet for the text field. IB stands for Interface Builder and you can think of it as a variable connected with the element for now. Buttons are different though. They can perform action as well. They can have an IB outlet as well as an IB action. For now, we need to create an IB action, not an outlet. To do that, select the button and control click drag it in the class below the viewDidLoad method. As you see, it automatically sets the connection as an action. Let's name it check number and press enter. Now we have a function that will execute when the user taps the button in the UI. Lastly, when the user presses the button, we want to fetch the text value of the text field, check if it's even or odd and navigate to the appropriate VC. In the first step, we will get the text value of the text field. Let str is equal to NumberTextField.text. In Swift, we use let for a constant and var for a variable. It is not mandatory to specify the data type. As the NumberTextField.text gives us a string, the data type of str is automatically set to string. Now let's convert that to integer. Let number is equal to int str. Can we do this in a single step? Of course. Replace str with number textfield.text. Now we have a number, or do we? What if the user does not input anything in the text field and taps the button? Or what if the user enters a name and taps the button? Our app will crash as we cannot convert an empty string or a name to an integer. So we need a mechanism that will guarantee us that we get an integer. Let me introduce you to guard. Enter guard before let, and this will now ask us to put an else condition, in which we will simply ask it to return. What's happening here? Guard checks if the number has a value. If not, it executes the else block where we return it and further instructions are not executed. Now we are guaranteed to have a number. Let's put the if else condition for even odd. If number modulo 2 equal 0, then we navigate to even screen, else we navigate to odd screen. Remember we gave identifiers for VC to VC segue, and I told you we will need to call them in code. This is where we use it. Call the function perform segue with identifier and enter the appropriate identifier there. That's it, we have successfully created our first app. Let us now run the app in the simulator. I'll select iPhone 11 to run the app. Let's wait for the simulator to load. Clicking on even odd button takes us to the second VC. Remember we removed its file? It's working directly from UI. Here we first try and click the check button and see if our app crashes. And nothing happens. What if I enter a name? Nothing happens again. We could obviously give feedback to the user here, but we'll keep that for later. Entering a number takes us to the result. 12 is even. Let's go back and check for 13. It's odd. Our app works. In this session, we learned many important aspects that I would recommend you to start practicing. Thank you for watching. Please hit like if this helped, share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel for more videos. Keep coding, keep helping.